There are hidden gems in neighborhood after neighborhood around Los Angeles.
These streets and the buildings that make up Los Angeles all have stories to tell.
There is history here that is important and that needs to be preserved.
SurveyLA is the first ever comprehensive Los Angeles historic resources survey. It's our first opportunity to go throughout Los Angeles and identify those sites of architectural, cultural, and historic significance. It's a planning tool. It will give decision makers, policy makers, community members, and property owners alike the first ever comprehensive look at our built heritage in Los Angeles, identifying what's significant and what appears to be less significant.
Imagine the magnitude of surveying the city of Los Angeles. It's 880,000 parcels. That's a big task.
The depth and the range of the survey will be the most comprehensive survey ever undertaken, at least in modern times, by an American city.
SurveyLA will be fanning out throughout communities in Los Angeles sequentially over the next several years, and we hope to complete the project by the end of 2011. At least once a year we'll be bringing the survey findings to the city's Preservation Commission, our Cultural Heritage Commission, for adoption. There'll be an opportunity for the public to comment at the Cultural Heritage Commission on the findings about what's been identified or what's been missed in their own communities, about the findings affecting their own properties. SurveyLA simply would not be possible without the partnership of the Getty. It was the Getty Conservation Institute that over the last several years really laid the groundwork for this project.
The staff of the Getty Conservation Institute are intimately involved with colleagues at the city who are leading this project in the Department of Historic Resources, but as well a major grant, matching grant, was made from the Getty to the city to support the project for 5 years.
The Getty board and staff wanted to make an enduring and important contribution to its home city. And essentially they saw the survey as kind of a gift that would keep on giving.
Los Angeles doesn't have a systematic inventory of its resources, so we thought, well, that might be a way we can contribute to Los Angeles and to give something back to the community.
Right now, less than 15% of the city has been surveyed, and so we just don't know where all the historic buildings are. We don't know the stories, we don't know the buildings, we don't know, the architects that make our city what it really is and what is so special about it.
I've lived in Los Angeles most of my life, and I myself am constantly discovering communities and neighborhoods that I never knew existed.
Here at Frank Lloyd Wright's masterful Ennis House, which he completed in 1924, and it's a great way to understand LA's rich architectural legacy. So imagine Wright, he just came from Tokyo where he'd been working. He was shunned in the East for some personal choices and couldn't go back to proper East Coast society. So where did he go? He goes to Los Angeles. And he designs a series of 3 critical houses, including the Ennis House here, that will really take his architecture to the next level. Frank Lloyd Wright's daring moves was to use Mayan architecture to inspire him in this house. So you come in through a dark, low, kind of cramped feeling entryway, and you come up to this magnificent lighted space. And truly this hallway is one of those great kind of moments in American architecture where you have a place infused by California sunlight. And as a professional and as a historic preservationist who gets to wake up every day and help people save historic places, I hope that we get a much deeper appreciation and respect for the past and for the richness of Los Angeles' past.
Crestwood Hills, which was originally called Mutual Housing Association, was the only successful cooperative effort in California after the war. It was proposed as 350 homes in the area. Originally 160 houses were designed by Modernist architects A. Quincy Jones, Whitney Smith, and structural engineer Edgardo Contini. There are now 33 houses remaining. 45 were burnt in the Bel Air fire. Of those 33 houses, we have 17 declared historic monuments for the city of LA. With each house that's demolished, we lose part of the character of the neighborhood as a whole. It was an interesting cultural experiment. One of the houses that we lost just recently, a couple weeks ago, was on a street that was fairly intact. And every time we lose one of these houses, the street loses this essence, this design, this urban theory experiment that happened. It lessens it slightly, and it's important that we keep it intact. Preserving Crestwood Hills has been a challenge. When we started in '95, there was very little interest for preserving modernist architecture. And it's only through the recent decade that there has been an interest, and a survey will certainly uncover a lot of the hidden modernist gems that are out there and make the public aware of them and the necessity of preserving these. They're so easily demolished without preservation efforts.
Balboa Highlands was developed in 1963 and 1964 by the developer Joseph Eichler. The architects were A. Quincy Jones and Frederick Emmons, who were prominent architects in the Modernist movement. And 1963-64 was not all that long ago, and many people don't think of homes from the 1960s or neighborhoods from the 1960s as being significant or potentially historic. SurveyLA is going to be evaluating these neighborhoods from the 40s, 50s, and 60s because it now has been about a half century since most of these were built, and it's time to identify what is significant and worth saving and what is less so.
Without a survey, we don't really know what we've lost. We know that early buildings in Van Nuys, one of the early settlement houses, was demolished last year. Throughout neighborhoods, there are these early farmhouses that just disappear overnight. So the survey will really provide us with the information of knowing what's historic and knowing when we need to step in to make sure that it gets preserved.
We're in the foothill community of Tujunga, standing in front of Weatherwold Castle, which is one of the most distinctive homes in Tujunga, built in 1928 and designed by a French architect from the Normandy region in a French-Norman style meant to kind of replicate the chateaus in his home region in France. And this is a significant home to the history of Tujunga and had association with a number of Hollywood figures as well. And all was well here until 2005 when a developer bought this property with intentions of developing 3 homes on this parcel. He did his research, found it was not designated as a historic property, and began demolition on this site. And as you can see, this did have a happy ending, but barely. This was how we shouldn't be doing preservation in the city, that 11th hour preservation by triage approach that often results in the loss of important historic resources. The house was saved, it was designated at the 11th hour as a city historic cultural monument and is still in the process of being restored. There are hidden gems like this in neighborhood after neighborhood around Los Angeles. Houses and commercial buildings that have long been overlooked, have been intact for many decades, and often we only begin to appreciate them when they're truly facing the wrecking ball, as Weatherwold Castle was a few years back.